Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report, your number one destination for breaking news, exclusive analysis, and insider updates on our Los Angeles Lakers. I'm about to share something with you that could fundamentally alter the landscape of the entire Western Conference. And I need you to stay locked in because what I'm hearing from multiple sources around the league has the potential to be the most consequential move in Lakers history since we brought LeBron James to Los Angeles. There's a situation developing right now that involves championship DNA, legacy-defining decisions, and a front office that's finally showing the kind of aggression Lakers Nation has been demanding for years. Before I get into the specifics, I want you to understand the full context of what's happening across the Bay in Golden State, because everything I'm about to tell you is connected to a chain of events that started with one franchise making a critical miscalculation that's now opened the door for Rob Pelinka and the Lakers to make a move that seemed impossible just 6 months ago. Let me paint the picture of where we are in the league right now, because context is everything when we're talking about potential franchise-altering transactions. The Western Conference is an absolute bloodbath this season, with legitimate championship contenders, stacked from top to bottom. You've got the Nuggets with Jokic continuing to operate at an MVP level. The Clippers healthy and dangerous, the Suns with their big three trying to figure out chemistry, and then there's us, the Lakers, sitting in a position where we're good enough to compete, but not quite elite enough to separate ourselves from the pack. LeBron James is still playing at an incredibly high level at 39 years old, defying every expectation and showing that Father Time hasn't caught up to him yet. Anthony Davis has been dominant when healthy, asserting himself as one of the premier two-way players in basketball. But here's the uncomfortable truth that I know we all feel deep down. We're one piece away. We're one elite perimeter creator away from having the kind of offensive firepower that can go toe-to-toe with anyone in a 7-game series. We've seen what happens when our offense gets stagnant in the playoffs, when defenses load up on LeBron and AD, and when we don't have that third reliable scoring option who can create his own shot consistently. That's the gap we need to fill, and I'm telling you right now that Rob Pelinka understands this better than anyone. Now, while we've been navigating our own challenges in Los Angeles, something fascinating has been happening up in the Bay Area that's directly relevant to what I'm about to share with you. The Golden State Warriors made a significant move earlier this season by trading for Jimmy Butler, a decision that, at the time, seemed like it could extend their championship window alongside Stephen Curry. Butler is a proven winner, a guy who's been to multiple finals, someone who elevates his game when the stakes are highest. On paper, pairing him with Curry made sense as a way to take pressure off Steph and give the Warriors another legitimate creator and defender. But here's what's actually happened since that trade went down, and this is where everything gets interesting for us as Lakers fans. The Warriors are struggling. Despite having two future Hall of Famers in Curry and Butler, they're hovering around the play-in tournament conversation rather than being firmly entrenched as a top 4 seed. Butler's averaging decent numbers, putting up around 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists on solid efficiency. But there's a problem that's becoming increasingly apparent as the season progresses. Butler, at 36 years old, isn't the type of high-volume scorer who can ease the burden on Curry on a night-to-night basis during the regular season. He's still an excellent playoff performer when everything is on the line. But getting to the playoffs in this loaded Western Conference requires consistent production every single night. And that's just not what Butler has been providing. The situation in Golden State has deteriorated to the point where serious questions are being asked internally about whether this partnership is actually working or whether they've inadvertently accelerated the end of the Curry era by locking up significant salary cap space in a player who doesn't quite fit their current needs. Curry is 36 years old himself, still playing at an elite level, and averaging over 28 points per game while shooting lights out from three-point range, like he's done his entire career. but he's carrying an enormous offensive load, and the supporting cast around him isn't good enough to compete with the elite teams in the West. The Warriors find themselves in a precarious position. They're too good to tank, not good enough to seriously compete for a championship, and they're locked into expensive contracts that limit their flexibility to make meaningful improvements. This is the kind of organizational crossroads that forces teams to ask uncomfortable questions about their future, and according to sources I've been speaking with, those questions are being asked in Golden State right now. They're evaluating everything, including scenarios that seemed unthinkable just a year ago. This brings me to what's been happening behind closed doors over the past 2 weeks, and this is where Lakers fans need to pay very close attention. The Lakers front office, led by Rob Pelinka with full support from ownership, has been monitoring the Golden State situation closely and has identified a potential opportunity that could change everything for our franchise. Multiple sources have indicated that the Lakers have put together a substantial trade proposal aimed at bringing Stephen Curry to Los Angeles. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Lakers are making a serious push to acquire one of the greatest players in NBA history, a 2-time MVP, 4-time champion, and the greatest shooter the game has ever seen. This isn't some wild fan speculation or clickbait nonsense. This is legitimate organizational interest from our front office in exploring whether Golden State would be willing to consider moving their franchise icon if the package is right and if it allows them to retool around their younger pieces while getting off some of the expensive contracts that are currently handcuffing them. Now, before anyone starts panicking about what we'd have to give up or whether this is even realistic, let me walk you through the strategic logic behind this potential move and why it actually makes more sense than you might initially think. First, consider Curry's contract situation. He's got 1 year left after this season on his current deal at approximately $62 million, which sounds like a massive number, but is actually manageable for a franchise like the Lakers that's operating in championship or bust mode with LeBron's window closing. Second, think about the basketball fit. Curry next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis would create the most devastating offensive trio in basketball, bar none. You'd have arguably the greatest passer ever in LeBron, the greatest shooter ever in Curry, and one of the most dominant two-way bigs in AD. The spacing would be absolutely lethal, with Curry's gravity pulling defenders 40 feet from the basket and opening up driving lanes for LeBron and post-up opportunities for AD that simply don't exist in our current offensive structure. The pick-and-roll combinations between Curry and AD would be virtually unguardable, and having LeBron as a secondary playmaker who can operate in the short roll or attack closeouts would give teams nightmares trying to defend us. From Golden State's perspective, as painful as it would be to move Curry, there's a legitimate argument that it might be the right basketball and business decision at this stage of their respective timelines. They'd be able to get off the Butler contract, which has another year at $54 million remaining and isn't providing the value they need. They'd be able to acquire young assets and draft capital that allows them to rebuild properly rather than remaining stuck in no man's land as a fringe playoff team. They'd be able to maintain their competitive integrity by ensuring Curry goes to a championship contender where he can compete for another title rather than wasting his final elite years on a team that isn't quite good enough. And perhaps most importantly from an organizational standpoint, they'd be able to reset their salary cap situation and build around the younger players they have while maintaining their long-term financial flexibility. This isn't about Golden State giving up on winning. It's about recognizing reality and making a hard decision that positions both the franchise and Curry himself for the best possible outcomes. The package the Lakers have reportedly put together is substantial and shows real commitment to making this happen. While I can't reveal every specific detail of what's being discussed, sources indicate the Lakers are willing to include multiple first-round picks, young players with upside, and the salary necessary to make the numbers work under the collective bargaining agreement. We're talking about a serious offer that would require Golden State to truly evaluate whether continuing with the current core makes sense or whether this represents an opportunity to transition into a new era while getting maximum value for their franchise icon. The Lakers aren't lowballing here. They understand what Curry represents both as a player and as a cultural icon, and they're prepared to pay the premium necessary to bring him to Los Angeles. Rob Pelinka has been criticized in the past for being too cautious or too reactive, but this move would represent the kind of aggressive, forward-thinking roster construction that championship organizations demonstrate. You don't get opportunities to acquire players of Curry's caliber very often, and when those opportunities present themselves, you have to be willing to push all your chips to the center of the table. Let me address the elephant in the room that I know many of you are thinking about. Would Curry even want to come to Los Angeles? This is a valid question, considering his entire career has been spent in Golden State, and he's been the face of that franchise for over a decade. But here are the factors working in the Lakers' favor. First, Curry is a competitor who wants to win championships, and the current Warriors roster simply isn't constructed to compete for titles in the loaded Western Conference. Coming to LA would give him an immediate opportunity to contend alongside two other superstars who are still playing at elite levels. Second, Curry is 36 years old and understands that his window to win another championship is closing rapidly. Every year matters at this stage of his career, and wasting seasons on a team that's not quite good enough isn't how legends want their careers to end. Third, there's the legacy component. Winning a championship with a different franchise, especially one as iconic as the Lakers, would add another layer to his already incredible resume and would cement his status as someone who can win anywhere under any circumstances. Michael Jordan won 6 in Chicago, but imagine if he'd won another in a different uniform. That's the kind of historical significance we're talking about here. The basketball fit is something I really want to emphasize, because it's not just about putting 3 great players together and hoping it works. The Lakers would need to completely reimagine their offensive system to maximize what Curry brings. But that's actually an exciting proposition rather than a concerning one. Imagine running Curry through constant off-ball screens the way Golden State has done for years, except now, instead of Draymond Green making the reads out of the short roll, you have LeBron James with the ball in his hands and the entire floor spaced out. Defenders would be in impossible situations, having to choose between helping on LeBron's drives and leaving the greatest shooter ever open for a three-pointer, or staying home on Curry and allowing LeBron to attack downhill with full steam. The pick-and-roll action between Curry and Anthony Davis would be equally devastating, with Davis rolling to the rim or popping for mid-range jumpers, while Curry's defender is trapped between going under the screen and allowing an open three or fighting over the screen and leaving Curry with space to attack. These are the kinds of offensive actions that would be virtually impossible to defend consistently over a 7-game playoff series, and that's exactly what championship teams need in the modern NBA. Defensively, I know there are concerns about Curry's limitations on that end of the floor, but let's be realistic about what we're building here. The Lakers would be constructing an offensive super team designed to outscore opponents, and with LeBron's defensive IQ, Anthony Davis's elite rim protection, and the right complementary pieces around the core 3, the defense would be more than adequate. Curry has also improved defensively over the years, understanding positioning better and being willing to compete on that end. He's never going to be a lockdown defender, but in the right system with the right supporting cast, his defensive limitations can be minimized while his offensive brilliance is maximized. That's the trade-off championship teams make all the time, and it's absolutely the right calculation when you're talking about adding the greatest shooter in basketball history to your roster alongside 2 other generational talents. The financial implications of this move are complex but manageable for a franchise that's fully committed to winning now. The Lakers would need to navigate luxury tax concerns and ensure they have enough financial flexibility to round out the roster with quality role players. But ownership has shown repeatedly that they're willing to spend whatever it takes when championship windows are open. Having Curry, LeBron, and AD would make Los Angeles the premier destination for veteran minimum players who want to ring chase, which means we'd be able to fill out the roster with experienced players who understand their roles and are willing to sacrifice for team success. Think about the kind of players who would come to LA on minimum deals for the chance to play alongside those three 3-and-D wings who can space the floor, athletic shot blockers who can protect the rim, veteran point guards who can run the second unit and give Curry rest. The roster construction becomes easier rather than harder when you have that kind of star power, because everyone knows exactly what their role is and what's expected of them. I want to address the timeline here because that's crucial to understanding whether this deal could actually happen. We're approaching the trade deadline, which means teams are evaluating their positions and deciding whether they're buyers, sellers, or staying put. Golden State is at a crossroads where they need to make a decision about their direction, and the longer they wait, the fewer options they'll have. The Lakers, meanwhile, are in win-now mode, with LeBron turning 40 next season and needing to maximize every opportunity while he's still playing at this level. Both franchises have compelling reasons to explore this trade now, rather than waiting, which increases the likelihood that serious negotiations could happen over the next few weeks. I'm not saying this deal is done, or even that it's likely, but I am saying that it's being discussed seriously by both organizations and that the Lakers have put together a legitimate offer that Golden State would have to seriously consider. The reaction from Lakers Nation to news of this potential trade has been overwhelmingly positive, with fans excited about the prospect of adding a player of Curry's caliber and understanding what it would mean for our championship aspirations. There is obviously some concern about what we'd have to give up, but the reality is that when you have the chance to acquire a top 15 player of all time who's still performing at an elite level, you do whatever it takes to make it happen. The Warriors are vulnerable, Curry's situation in Golden State is uncertain, and the Lakers have the assets to make a competitive offer. This is our window, this is our chance, and I'm excited to see if Rob Pelinka can pull off what would be the most significant trade in Lakers history. Make sure you subscribe to Lakers News Fan Report and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this developing situation. I'll be monitoring every development closely and bringing you instant analysis as soon as any news breaks. Share this video with every Lakers fan, because this is the kind of story that we all need to be following together. Like the video if you want to see Curry in purple and gold, and let me know in the comments what you think the final package should look like. We're building the best Lakers community on YouTube, and I appreciate every single one of you for being part of this journey. Let's go, Lakers!